Please be seated. All right. Today, we're going to begin with camels. How many of y'all have seen a real camel in life? Come on, show of hands. We've seen them, right? They're big, right? How many humps? How many humps did the camel you have seen? 1, 2, all right. So camels with their distinctive humps are designed to endure harsh desert conditions. They can go days without food or water, and thus they were very important pack animals in the ancient Middle East. But camels are more than just desert survivors. They're stubborn, ornery creatures, and they spit when they're displeased. So I learned a little more about camels than I wanted to this week, y'all. When camels spit, they also throw up in their mouth a little bit first, so you really don't want to get spit on by a camel. And their stubbornness isn't just for show. Camels have a strong sense of self-preservation and won't obey orders or commands if they sense danger. Now, all of that was great as pack animals in the ancient Middle East, but you take some hardy camels and you throw them in a petting zoo or a wildlife park and you get some funny videos, y'all. I'm sure some of you have seen or even experienced the fun of a camel spitting on you. Yeah, seen it? Have y'all seen that? Or my favorite, that you see these all the time, people trying to drive through those wildlife parks and they've got food and the camels will stick their heads in and demand the food. And guess what happens if you try to shove their heads out of the car? They spit on you. Now, imagine trying to force one of these stubborn creatures through the eye of a needle. Yes, I know some scholars talk about the eye of a needle referring to a narrow gate into the city, but I don't think that's what Jesus is getting at here. He's telling a joke, y'all. A pointed, sarcastic joke. Camel, needle. It's impossible. And if you try, it's going to get a little messy. Now, this isn't good news for the man in today's gospel. He arrives eager to impress Jesus, but leaves disheartened. To set the scene, think about it. Jesus is traveling with his disciples. He is followed by a crowd. The disciples have almost nothing because they're just, cloaks and staffs at this point. And the crowd that follows him tends to follow him because he heals and feeds the needy. And they don't have much. Imagine maybe Jesus showing up at neighbor's table in Sutherland Hall on a Saturday. The tables are full of people ready to eat a wholesome home-cooked meal. Jesus is moving from table to table, listening to people's needs and offering prayers. Suddenly, a man strides through the door. When the greeter invites him to join, he brushes them off and heads straight to Jesus, pulling him away from his ministry. "Look, Jesus, I've heard you're powerful," he says. "What must I do to inherit eternal life?" "Well," Jesus replies, glancing around the room, "love God and love your neighbor are good places to start." "Oh, I've got that down," the man says with a smile. "I go to church, I tithe, I give to nonprofits, I even offset my carbon footprint." Jesus pauses. He pointedly looks over the folks waiting for their meal, then back to the impatient man staring at him. "Well then, sell what you own, give the rest to the poor, and you can start by helping me here today." The man's face falls. It's too much. Shoulders sag as he turns away, retreating to the comfort of his life, leaving that chance behind to follow Jesus. It's impossible to force a camel load of stuff where Jesus wants us to go. But we all have stubborn, spitting camels of our own, loaded with things we can't live without. But where is that camel keeping us from going? What does it stop us from doing? I'll admit, I'm a great example. If I carry a purse, it gets heavier week by week with all the things that I might need, right? I keep a bin in the back of my car filled with the just-in-case supplies. We call it the bag of holding. I'm not talking about an emergency kit, y'all. I'm talking about bike repair kits for a bike I haven't ridden in over a year. Bug spray in case I just happen to spontaneously go on a hike without stopping by the house first. Winter gear, hats, gloves, scarves, in case it suddenly snows in the middle of summer. These are my camels, loaded with stuff, some of them. Just in case I have a desert or a snowstorm to cross in Arkansas. When we are wrapped up in our stuff, whether it's the things in our homes or our anxieties about status and security, our hearts and minds are tied to worldly goods. We're constantly tending to them, worrying about them, and feeding them. It's hard to focus fully on God and our neighbor when we're burdened by all these things that we have to take care of. And honestly, it's exhausting. We're tugging on our camels, dragging them behind us while they resist like heavy anchors. They take care, feeding, and attention, kind of messy. They're stubborn creatures, messy, burdensome to keep up with. But when we're caught up in the care and feeding of our camels, we get distracted by riddles like how to fit a camel through the eye of a needle, instead of hearing the deeper invitation Jesus offers us to let go. We all have some of these burdens, whether they're material things, expectations, or attachments. Our camels weigh us down and hold us back. They consume our time and energy and distract us from the freedom that Jesus offers. Imagine how it might feel to leave the camel behind, to let go of the load, and simply walk with Jesus. Today, between the services, we reflected on our church's history and roots. We have the opportunity to contemplate our own stories and those of our fellow travelers. I love how our shared history shaped the vestry and our discussion today, the recent discussions about the future of All Saints. As we tell our stories and share our first memories of visiting All Saints, themes emerge. Surprise, welcome, acceptance, love. We have all felt a sense of coming home to God's love, a feeling of belonging that unites us across differences. Jesus' invitation to the rich man and to all of us is not simply about giving up stuff. It's about letting go so that we can open our hands and hearts, releasing what we cling to so we might receive the fullness of God's grace. Maybe Jesus' challenge feels overwhelming, even frightening, but he's not asking us to sacrifice for the sake of suffering. He's inviting us to a life of deeper freedom where our hearts are no longer entangled in anxiety about what we have, don't have, want. It's a life where we're not defined by our possessions, but by the love that we give and receive. When we let go of what burdens us, we discover that God's love fills the space once occupied by our fears. We find that God's grace is abundant and overflowing, enough to meet every need. When we're freed from the distraction of those stubborn, spitting camels, we find the room to share more fully in God's love, to extend that love to others, truly be present with those around us each day.